Hi, YouTube. So here we are. We're going to do a lightning round tonight. I'll tell you why. Yeah, the mute button. No, we're good. It looks like we're actually broadcasting. Um, I've got major uh, video for National Defense University and have a string out of that I have to get up tonight before I go home. Plus, push back the right angles so that I could get some of the other editing done. And I've got to be in the chair again this tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to be getting up at 5, and I've still got some editing to do tonight. So what I thought I didn't want to cancel. I didn't want to postpone. So what I thought we'd do is we would do kind of a lightning round and just get to the questions. It looks like we have moved the, excuse me, I beg your pardon. Let me just see, I have an update on this. We moved the website back to WP. WP engine. Hang on a second, just checking this. Oh crap, 556. Hang on. I've got to deal with. I need to deal with the developer real quick. I'm sorry for this. Yeah, sorry about this. But I have to just get this stuff to this guy. Just talk amongst yourselves. Sorry about this. 3, 4, 5, 2, 3. Sorry, gang. So we moved the website back to WP Engine, which we hope will solve some of the plugin issues and some of the connection issues. We're trying to figure out the situation is, yeah, the website's terribly slow loading, and we're trying to get that solved. I mentioned before, I did out of I'm not an IT guy, so we moved to host a dedicated server with the fastest host that we could find. I thought that'd speed things up. Turns out that we have a very low volume site, and we don't. The one we moved off of, WP Engine, has special caching for WordPress websites, and we hope it will smooth out some of these plugin issues, and also hope that there's a lot of plugins that integrate with from the server to the website, and they are not supported on the server I moved us to. So we're going to find out. So yes, the speed is important, and the signing up is more important. So I'm just going to peel this window off here because it looks like I had one of those. Yes, he's online. My God, for us to be online at the same time is almost unheard of. It's another one of the problems with working, online with people on the other side of the world. But in any event, it looks like, and this is not the, I've got over the disappointment of this already. It looks like tomorrow is the day Japan surrendered. If it turns out that that's a big news item, then I'm just going to divorce the truth bombs just completely from the atom bomb afterburners. If it turns out that there's going to be big celebrations on the 2nd, I might try and time it then. So probably I'm just going to do the truth bombs thing as a standalone thing, which is probably better actually. So that's that. I'm on the verge of getting some of the best possible personal news. I don't want to say any more than that until I get it confirmed, but something that's given me and Natasha a lot of hope. Yeah, Marusha says divorce it anyway. You're probably right. It have more punch, obviously, standing on its own. So no longer have that pressure to deal with in terms of the deadline, but I still got some editing to do, and looking forward to get this up a little bit higher here. Not saying anything. I'm just saying, we're hoping. So we're gonna see. And we'll let people know as soon as I know. But yeah, there's some movement there, and that would be nice. So let's see. I think, as I said, since I have so much to do, and I didn't want to cancel or delay, I thought what we might do tonight is just do a speed round where we just get straight into the questions and knock those down, so that we're making an effort anyway. Which I think sure does load fast when. See, again, I'm not an IT guy, and some of this came after we made the move. But the thing that's got me encouraged about the website is it is blindingly fast to load when you're not logged in. Now, that's obviously not what we want. The whole point is to make it faster for our members. But the fact that it loads very quickly if you're not logged in is telling me that it's not a server issue. It's not that the servers can't handle the images. I just think that we have plugin conflicts. There's so many different plugins for WordPress, and by the way, and I don't really understand these things, but when I talked to WordPress Engine about moving back to WordPress Engine, they said, you're already on WordPress Engine. I said, well, I don't think so. And the salesperson said, yeah, you definitely are. We got your account here. I just checked your website. Everything's running fine. And then it turns out that the DNS is pointing to a different place than the server, and all of this stuff. So, I'm hoping that it might be something real simple, like, you go to this address and you open the door, and instead of getting to the party you want, they give you a envelope with the address where the party really is, and you have to drive over there. But we'll see. But in any event, things are moving on, and man, would I love to just have full time to dedicate to all of this stuff. I know I said I'd roll right into the questions, but just one last thing. I think the first of the truth bombs are going to be 11 questions. Is that all? I think the first of the truth bombs is going to be Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, because I'll say right at the beginning that it's just a warm up, because it's an interesting case, and what I find interesting about the two of them together is you can the Loch Ness. I'm thinking what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a lot of I don't want to say a lot of enemies, but there's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of problems with this, and I just got to not worry about that. I'm doing it for people who what I'm really trying to do more than anything with these truth bomb things is teach people how to weigh evidence and think critically. That's going to piss some people off, but what I thought I would do is when I get to the end of the show, divide, have like different categories to end it with. I don't know whether I want 5 or 7, but for example, if something were true, that would be, in my opinion, this is beyond dispute. Very likely, likely, 50-50, unlikely, very unlikely, and just plain false. And the thing that's interesting about Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot together in the same episode is that the Loch Ness Monster you can lock out. That is not true. You can say with certainty that the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist, and you cannot quite do it with Bigfoot. I think I would take. I think the conclusions would be Loch Ness Monster, nope, not there. Bigfoot, very unlikely, but you can't lock Bigfoot out the same way you can lock out Nessie. You can lock out Nessie because Nessie is an air-breathing plesiosaur, and she'd have to be coming up for air every, 10 times an hour. Deporter-in-Chief says, I think you can do it with Bigfoot. This is why I'm interested in doing the two things together, because while Bigfoot seems exceedingly unlikely, you can't quite lock the door on it because, Canada's a big country. You can just say exceedingly unlikely. There's no evolutionary path to it, and when you when your best evidence is proven to be fake, then you're really there. I'm going to openly call that first episode a warm up. So Nessie the door is locked. That's just locked. There you go. The Rough Ryan says Loch Ness Monster 0 out of 5, Bigfoot 1 out of 5. I'm kind of tempted to go with 7. I don't know, because when I want to say something is extremely unlikely. Alien visitation by UFOs with little green men is extremely unlikely, but you can't quite lock it out. I think you can actually lock out the moon landing. I think you can basically say that it happened without a doubt, because not only do you defeat the evidence against the moon landing, but you can't do it on Earth. The dust is the ultimate test. Hang on a second. 1 second. Sorry. Just 1 second. Sorry. All right. So, that's what we're gonna do. And I'm really looking forward to it. One of the main reasons, obviously, people have been wanting the firewalls to come back and the afterburners, and it's a lot of trouble to do to set up the green screens and all of the. So you got to shoot it on 4K, got to drag the camera out, you got to have a separate microphone, and it's a pain in the ass. And all the post production for an afterburner firewall is a pain, but. I know myself well enough to know that if something's a real pain, it's not likely to get done. And the beautiful thing about about the truth bombs thing is we'll do the whole thing in AI, which means I can record it right here. So you know, you just sit down and record it. I can stand up and record it because the motion tracking does body movements. And I think what we'll probably do, in fact, what will be really fun to do, in fact, ideas just come to me as they come to me. What would be really fun and really cool to do would be to do to build a set so that the nice thing about the black suit, black tie thing is it's a real easy, repeatable prompt for the AI. So as long as it's got good picture of my face, and that's the Younger Dryads, Lutheran carnivore, which now I would put in the very likely category. But what I thought it would do is we would have a set, and the set would be like a dark space, and we would have it would basically be Night Gallery. It would be a dark set with different pictures of the various things hanging, you know, with spotlights on them, and all I have to do is render that once. I could probably render that in CGI, and then that would be the background plate, and then I would do a render the guy, the actual stuff, against a green screen, and then I would just comp myself into this background. So, and that's super easy. So there you go. So I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, the problem is that and I don't have to use Midjourney for all of this stuff. Midjourney is real good at creating images. When I did the improved version of the pitch, I got the Younger Dryas wall to stop curling at the top, so it's just a giant vertical wall of water, and that looks so much better than the other one, which just looks like a really big wave. Plus, they also threw in a little wave, and that it just generated on its own, and that little wave washes, you know, like comes up to my waist and stuff. So so we would have like we would generate like a background plate for each episode where the screen I would be standing in front of, the picture I would be standing kind of in front of, the featured picture would be the one of whatever subject we're doing. Eric says, a truth bomb topic, the Bermuda Triangle. To be perfectly honest with you, I actually thought about including that on the pilot episode, because all three of those are kind of old school. They were hotly debated when in the 70s and 80s, but nobody really talks about them now. So we're going to start with these because it's a useful way to learn how to think and how we're going to play this. The best evidence of the Bermuda Triangle before, back in the day of In Search of, we should just call it We Found It. But in the days of In Search of, the best evidence was the loss of Flight 19 of 5 Grumman Avengers just after World War II took off and disappeared into the Bermuda Triangle. And that was generally considered to be the jewel in the crown of evidence for these mysterious disappearances. But not only did they figure out where the navigation error happened, they actually found the Avengers, and that tends to destroy it. But the thing that actually, because I grew up with all this stuff, ancient astronauts, all that jazz, that was really huge in the 70s. This whole kind of, wow, there's all this weird stuff going on. Um, the the best evidence I ever heard against the Bermuda Triangle was was that when somebody said statistically, if you take an area the size of the Bermuda Triangle and place it anywhere over the world's maritime trade routes, you will find an equal number of unexplained disappearances. And I thought, well, I was like 18 or something when I heard this. I said, that's it, man. Game over. That's cool. Yeah, Chariots of the Gods, and I, I'm tempted. Maybe I'll add that too for the pilot, because Chariots of the Gods is interesting, because some of these cases are cases where people genuinely in good faith think that this is something that might be happening. But Chariot of the Gods had inside Chariot of the Gods, there were a number of photographs, and one of them was like this hummingbird shape on the Nazca Plains in Peru, and it had these vertical lines for the wings of the hummingbird, and von Daniken, the author, said, "Are these parking ramps for alien spaceships?" And showed a bunch of airplanes parked in rows like this. Is this a parking ramp for alien spaceships? And I thought, well, that's pretty good explanation. And then you find out that the hummingbird is 30 feet across, right? The whole thing. The whole thing is just it's a building for ants. Merchant says, why do people find it more believable that there are angels and demons than there are extraterrestrials? Well, because angels and demons exist in a different domain, and extraterrestrials exist in this domain. There's no way to prove or disprove the supernatural domain. The aliens have to live in our world, though. They have to deal with relativity and speed of light and all that other stuff. And especially like the Roswell crash, where if you saw the guy who actually made the claim, there's a photograph of the wreckage, and the wreckage is a guy holding like a couple of sheets of like aluminum foil. It looks like somebody took 4 or 5 Jiffy Pops and tore them up and left them on the ground. This is the wreckage of a flying saucer. I thought, it just seems odd that you can travel from very distant solar systems here and fly around with anti-gravity machines and all of that, and then you make kind of a student pilot mistake, and you crash into a mountain. How's that possible? Somebody, Rough Ryan says it was a Joe Rogan show, and she was on the oversight committee of multidimensional beings, creatures, and aircraft. I got to tell you, I really like Joe Rogan. In a lot of the time, much of the time, I like Joe Rogan quite a lot. But Joe Rogan is maybe the most gullible guy that's ever lived on this earth. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people on that show saying like the most outrageous things, and Rogan goes, "What? Oh, dude!" It's like, Joe, Castellan says, if Roswell crash was a weather balloon, why did it take 2 18-wheel flatbeds to remove all the wreckage? How do you know it took 2 18-wheel flatbeds? So much of this stuff becomes told so many times that it assumes a sort of reality of its own. And my favorite thing is, what's the name of that guy, the Area 51 guy that Rogan's had on there a couple times, and the guy is, and he's talking about, well, yes, I stood in a hangar and I put my hand on a hovering spacecraft, and it was perfectly smooth and it was cold to the touch. We got underneath and we took all these measurements, not Hogland, and he goes into detail about all the things he saw, and he's very calm. He can tell you how many, he can tell you what color the hangars were, and all this stuff, and Rogan just eating it up with a Bob Lazar, eating it up with a shovel, and and um, and it's like Marusha says, I find Lazar to be highly credible. I don't care if he's the frickin' Pope. His testimony doesn't outweigh the difficulty of interstellar travel, anti gravity navigation. It doesn't matter how credible he seems, he's either lying or he's insane. That's the conclusion that I'm going to come to. Interesting book called Witness to Roswell. He is personal testimony is the least reliable evidence of all of this stuff. The least reliable. Rogan said what made him change his mind about the moon landing, and what made Rogan believe that the moon landing didn't happen, was the press conference with Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins, and he says, "Look how tired they look, and look how depressed they look. If I just come back from the moon, I wouldn't look like that. Yeah, they look like they got a gun to their head. And this is the evidence that we didn't go. And I'm quite sure that Joe Rogan doesn't know that Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins got out of the capsule and into 2 weeks, was it, of quarantine, 15 days? Here, let me show you something. Hang on, I'm just on a roll, and then we'll get to the questions. This is cited as like evidence that they didn't go. Okay, this picture. Hang on, here it comes. So here's Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins at the infamous press conference, right? And I agree, they look somewhat subdued, right? So guys look at this and say, these guys don't look like they came back from the moon. They all look like they're hiding something. They all look ashamed, and wow, this has got to be proof, and so on. But then let me show you another picture. Here's Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins right after they got out of the capsule, and about 3 weeks before this interview. That's what they look like when they actually got out of the capsule. What does this look like to you? To me, that looks like three guys who just got back from the moon, right? And this is Joe Rogan's best evidence, right? Is that these guys don't look like they just got back from the moon, but this picture happened 3 weeks after this picture. Boom. Boom. I actually think I might be able to get on the Rogan show just for this one picture, because I get even Nixon look happy. He looks real happy. This is what's going to be fun about this, and I'm going to follow not just Marusha's advice, but other people's advice as well. I'm going to get plenty angry and snarky when I'm writing it, but I'm gonna just calm it down. I'm gonna keep it light. Gonna keep it fair. Not gonna try and make people feel stupid. But it is pretty devastating. Pretty devastating. I think there's a fair chance that sorry, here's another one. Here's the depressed astronauts after their return from the moon. You can see just how morose and devastated they are that they've been found out, just going through the motions. Look at those poor, depressed, sad guys, huh? Yeah, keep it chill. That's right. I just get worked up now, but keeping it chill is absolutely the way to go. Yeah, Mitchell and Webb did do a great conspiracy thing on the moon landing, and look, MythBusters did a great job. I'm going to borrow liberally from. I'm not going to steal the whole MythBusters argument, but I might do the footprint thing. Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to them, and if I'm excited about them, there's a good chance they'll get done. So here we go. One more thing. Imagine I just found another picture that I've actually not seen before. Imagine you'd spent 11 days in a capsule, shoulder to shoulder. You're pooping in your own pants, right? The place nobody ever talks about this. The inside of this capsule has got to have smelled. Well, the thing about smell is after a while, you stop noticing it. But you're 11 days in a capsule. You get out. You walk across the deck of the Hornet, so you see some blue sky and some water. I don't remember if they must have been wearing some kind of mask or something. But then this is 3 weeks. 3 weeks. You've been training on top of it, right? For all these years, and you come back. You didn't just come back and take the ticker tape parade. You had to spend 3 weeks like that with these guys that you just spent 11 days with, and better part of 2 years with training all the time. It'd be like, I'd kind of like to go home. Is that Lambolium says, Bill would be a fantastic guest on Rogan, but there may not be much benefit. He's definitely end up saying some facts that send people into a spiral. Well, in any event, that'd be good TV. Dave Boutte says Frank Borman was sick as a dog from both ends on Apollo 8. When the Navy frogmen popped the hatch after splashdown, one of them fainted dead away from the smell. Is that true? Is that really true? Because that's a piece of evidence that I can use. I would want. Now they probably had showers. Yes, they must have, because they've shaved, obviously. But 3 weeks. Can you imagine? 3 weeks. Yeah. So anyway, there's stuff for all of that. All right. So let me just make sure that. I'll get to that afterwards. It's not. Okay. So anyway, that's that. But I'm looking forward to getting it done, and I'm going to divorce it from the atomic bombs. It's just like, there you go. Bill, you should feed the AI better photos of you. Come in with a suit, have Nat do a photo shoot, then use that. I definitely am going to get better pictures. I actually did have her take a couple of pictures that I tested. I'll try different software, but Midjourney only allows you to have one image that is so-called locked down. So that's the image I use. The one that I have been using is the image I used for all of the hang on. The image that I used for all of the stuff that you saw was this one. Give me a second. Where'd it go? Hang on. I had to scoop. I had the producer of the NDU thing come over, and I had to scoop everything off of the desktop. Here's what this is the image that I used for all of the stuff you saw. This one right here. Hang on YouTube. Which I like a lot. And it happens to be a really good angle. One of the problems is that it's black and white, so it tended to want to pull some of the images black and white. But yeah, I'll do another photo shoot. That's just really good lighting. Lutheran Carnivore says, I like the AI clip of Bill Whittle on the plane for chemtrails. That was funny. I thought it was funny too. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the Bigfoot was a lot of fun. I actually, all I had to do was tell the AI full color image, and it did colorize it. In fact, it colorized it really well. Now the software is changing so quickly, and new stuff comes up so often. I mean, really, every week there's just something brand new, and I really need to get into things like cozy. What is it? Cozy GUI, is it? Cozy UI. Anyway, there's some software that gives you more control and has access to Comfy UI. Thank you, Maltz. And I just need to learn it. You have a lot more control when you use Discord as well. But I don't know how to explain this. It's just true, and I can't explain it. I've defeated an awful lot of software in my day. Started with 3D Studio in 1992. All of the editing software, all of this AI stuff, all of the 3D stuff, Unreal Engine. I learned how to do motion capture, how to translate all that data. I'm not completely hopeless when it comes to software, but I cannot for the life of me understand Discord. I just don't get it. I'm just going to have to buckle down and do it, but the moment I logged onto it, I hated it, and I've hated it ever since then. I've been talking about this thing so many times, I'm going to just run it, and then we will move on. But I'm going to just run it because I just like watching it. Woody Fool says, where can we find this gem? So that's a good excuse for me to play it. Just the reference for the truth bombs part, not the. We won't do the opening thing because I think it's probably good, probably just as well that we missed that. Where'd I put it? Truth bombs. There it is. Truth bombs promo v4. Is that it? Is that good? No, it doesn't. Good. Make sure that this is the latest one. Yep. I still want to redo the lizard person just a little bit. I can maybe do it in Photoshop. I just didn't like the eyes. The shot of Nessie disappearing below the water is insanely good. So here it is. This is the Truth Bombs promo, and I still have significant amount to add to the backside of this, but I'll play it just one more time just because I dig it so much. I'm not gonna mute the mic. I'm just gonna be quiet. And actually, since I do like it so much, I'm just going to listen to it, but I'm going to listen to it on the headphones, the earpiece, I should say, because that way we don't get any feedback. Man, on the Stratathon, when I had that feedback loop for about a minute, because I was sure I killed all the mics and everything, and I went to full screen, and I went away for about a minute, and when I came back, everybody in the chat was, I thought it was like a mass shooting. My God, I'm hanging up. I can't, call me when it's over. So apparently there were like hundreds of me talking, which I thought would have been really cool. Punch a hole in the space-time continuum is right. Hang on a second. Sound. Come on, you can do it. Sound, external headphones. What am I listening to? No, I'm listening to, okay, I'm listening to the Twitch stream. Okay, here we go. Ready? It's going to loop for the guys on YouTube, but I can't help that. I'll just come back and turn it off just a second. Hey, I'm back. And with the new tools I now have at my fingertips, I think it's time for a third rebranding of the Afterburner Firewall series of videos. I want to call them Truth Bombs. We'll take a series of topics, virtually all of them controversial, and then we'll state the claims fairly and examine and weigh the evidence on both sides, and then see if we can come up with either a definite conclusion if the evidence is good enough, and if it's not, then at least the most likely case answer. And we're not ever going to use the term conspiracy theory either. That's just got way too much baggage. We'll call each case a speculative hypothesis. Now, some of these speculative hypotheses don't on the surface appear to be true, but some of them don't appear to be false either. That's why we're going to break it down the way we did with the atom bombs. Now, some of those hypotheses are in no particular order. Hey, I'm back. And with the new tools I now have at my fingertips, I think it's time for a third rebranding of the Afterburner Firewall series of videos. I want to call them Truth Bombs. Yeah, that's rather good. That's really quite good. I'm going to do TWA 800 too. When, you know, yes, Nancy did have 4 eyes. Come on, Bill. I might redo Nessie because I can probably make my face look a little bit better. I might redo that one. Anyway, yeah, TWA 800, before COVID changed, really COVID, I'm back is not going to be there. Oh, I see what you're saying. It shouldn't be changed. No, I'll figure something out. I'll probably put something ahead of it. But COVID changed just like a wake-up call for me. The things that I just, well, not just COVID, Comey and all of that. You know, I used to think that like the idea that of government conspiracies was just automatically false just because they were so much more complicated. But it's good that I'm cutting it. Yes. You know, a lot of witnesses, multiple independent witnesses saw missile trails going up. And that's, you know, it's one thing when somebody says I saw something. When multiple people say they saw the same thing and those people are not connected, that raises the value of you know, personal testimony. But there were also maneuvers going on in the area, and not only that, there's precedent. You know, it was Vincennes, right? USS Vincennes shot down that Iranian airliner. So, you know, there you go. Thank you very much. Red Weather Biker says, here's $20 because that was a freaking awesome clip. Thank you. Everybody's really really loving it. So I'm really looking forward to do that. I can Photoshop one set of eyes out from Nessie and make my face a little better. then I'll try to reanimate it and see if I can get the animation as good, because the way that thing goes into the water is just phenomenal. It's a still image of the thing, and I just said the monster slowly slides into the water as the man turns around and looked, then turns back to the camera, and it got everything and made its own waves, did the sound. So yeah, the post-COVID thing is reason to consider other things. Exactly right, Coffee Shinato. And so I was always a little suspicious of the Federal Reserve. That's a real topic. And I'm not going to include this on this promo, but at Rough Ryan, they recovered it from a depth of 16,000 feet. One I'm going to do, and I don't think I'm going to include it on this list, but one I'm going to do, and I might do early, is slavery. I'm going to do a truth bomb on slavery. Fun fact. Yeah, I love the Eric. I love the one on the wing. I just love it. Fun fact to know and tell. Anybody know what percentage of American citizens held slaves at the height of slavery, just prior to the Civil War in 1860? What percentage of Americans owned slaves themselves? Anyone want to guess? 3%, too? It's 1.4. 1.4% of the American population owned slaves. Anybody know what percentage? They were all Democrats. Anybody know what percentage of all of the slaves that were taken out of Africa during the African slave trade, what percentage came to the United States, came to the cotton plantations of the South? What percentage of African slaves ended up in America? Yeah, it's actually between 9 and 11. Most went to Brazil and the Caribbean. You don't hear jack about Brazil or the Caribbean. So 9% of all the blacks taken out of Africa came to America, and of those that came to America, they were owned by less than 2% of the population. So, yeah, I might have to do one on where Tucker Carlson's lost his ever-loving mind, and so is Candace Owens. They've just gone bat guano crazy. Really, just gone nuts. Yeah, take it up with the Portuguese. And 500,000 Americans died to stop it. Now, the Royal Navy, the British truthfully claim that the Royal Navy put an end to the African slave trade, and that's true. England abolished slavery in 1840. About 800 years after the formation of Britain in 1066, modern Britain, about 800 years after their formation, they abolished slavery, and America did it 80 years after its foundation. But I think the bigger issue here is, I would like to find out how many Brits died to abolish the slave trade on the ocean, because I'll bet you anything, it's less than 100. Right? And we lost 600,000 killed to put an end to that issue. Yeah, so I'm just going to lay that stuff out, So there you go. All right, here we go. I told you I'd get right into the questions, and we've already spent an hour, so that's about the way it always goes here. Wesley Bruce with the super chat. What happened to slaves that did not sell in Africa? Killed on the spot. Who was selling them? Islamists. I didn't know that either. I don't know if you guys ever saw the Key and Peele are pretty left wing, but those two guys are, I think they're probably the funniest sketch comedians that America's ever produced. Second City TV, well, that's mostly Canadian show. Key and Peele are really, 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 really good. And their thing on slavery, where they're both up there, and everybody gets bought except for them, and they start getting kind of self-conscious about that. It's really, really clever, really brilliant. Okay, here we go. Ron, yeah. Son of a bitch. All right, Ron. You done messed up, Ron? Yep. That's some brilliant stuff. All right, here we go. Roadrunner, greetings, friend Bill. Have unions, especially public sector unions, government employees, teachers, police, etc., reached the end of their usefulness? Yes. Next question. Unions donate heavily to politicians who then agree to more and more outrageous demands from the unions during their bargaining period. So we end up with incompetent or downright dangerous teachers that can't be fired, firefighters that can't perform basic rescues, police that have multiple legitimate complaints made against them, and civil servants, employees with no real job but are still receiving a paycheck. Granted, unions were necessary in the early years of our country, but I think they're now more of a problem to the American people than a benefit, although poor performers in the unions will disagree. Any thoughts? Yeah, let me deal with this kind of backwards. I agree with you that unions are, in the modern society, I just think they are, I just think they're terrible. Hang on. But you can't deny that the right to collective bargaining is a right that free people should have, right? You can't. So I wouldn't be in favor of banning private sector unions, even if I had the power to do it. However, public sector unions are an entirely different story. They're illegal. They should be illegal. Reagan fired the PATCO controllers because it was a public sector union. And the argument, which is an excellent argument, is that if the employees at McDonald's are going on strike, you can go to Burger King or Wendy or Chick-fil-A. But if the air traffic controllers are going on strike, you don't get to go to another government. They've got you, and that's why they. That's why in the public sector you can't have, happens in England all the time really, but you can't have fire departments go on strike, and you can't have police go on strike. That's why you have to ban public sector unions, because they have a monopoly. Dave Big Booty says, there's no right to strike against the public safety ever. That was from Ronaldus Magnus. God bless him. Their ATC contract prohibited strikes, says John Pershing. So, and that was something that really affected the Cold War. The Soviets saw Reagan do that, and they didn't know what to do. They'd never encountered a person with a moral core in politics who also kept his word. I think Donald Trump has that same effect on them. By the way, doesn't Trump have a summit tomorrow in Alaska with Putin? I saw a clip of Trump saying he was going to know within the first 2 minutes of the meeting whether or not they would be able to make a deal. And some reporter said, Mr. President, how are you going to know within the first 2 minutes? And Trump says, because I make deals. It's what I'm good at. There he is again, man. The guy's kicking ass. So, yeah. That's a listening session. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Then back to, let me see. Yeah, I think I covered it. Yeah, they definitely need to be banned, illegal. Do you know how far away, the closest country to America is Russia. Can't count Mexico and Canada because they actually border America. But the closest country to America is Russia, and I think it's 7 miles. It's something like 7 miles. Oh, sorry. It's a picture of Bigfoot flipping you off while riding the Loch Ness Monster. Still more believable than Joe Biden winning the 2020 election. So I would like that to end. It's Natasha needs to go home and visit her family, and I'm very, very worried about that. I wasn't worried until a case happened, I don't know, less than a year ago, something like that, and was just resolved apparently by Trump. There was a Russian-born ballerina who was an American citizen, got her U.S. citizenship, went back to Russia, and was detained by Russian authorities at the airport because she had made a $56 donation to Ukraine Relief Fund for orphans or something like that, right? So they locked her up for treason and kept her there for 3 months, I think. And I remember there've been not many times, but a couple times when I have told Natasha that something just simply wouldn't happen because I had faith in my government. And this obviously happened during the Biden administration. But I thought that it was inconceivable that the Russians could hold an American citizen. If it had been a Russian citizen, that's an entirely different story. They can do whatever they want to. But the fact that this was a U.S. citizen and was held, I had told Natasha prior to this, when Natasha got her U.S. citizenship, I said, honey, you now have this, it's not like it was back in the days after World War II, but there are now 11 carrier strike groups that are at the president's disposal to get you back from wherever you get into trouble. That's what I think about when I think about being an American citizen. And when they held this woman, she had dual citizenship, but that's I would have gone to. I'm actually thinking I might have gone to war over that. I certainly would have acted like I would have gone to war over it. I've told the story before about my friend Dick, who was a CIA operative, and he was in Lebanon when they were making all these kidnappings and kidnapping American citizens and kidnapping English citizens and all this for ransom. And these kidnappers, this would be in the 50s or 60s, kidnapped a Russian, and the Russians said, we're not making any deals, we're not paying any ransoms. Return this person by 6:00 p.m. or we will kill all of you involved with this, and we'll kill your family too. And they didn't return him. They thought they were bluffing, but they weren't bluffing. So the Russians sent in the Spetsnaz and killed all of these kidnappers and killed their families as well. And didn't kidnap any Soviet citizens after that. And I asked Dick about that. I said, Dick, that's it's pretty brutal, but it's pretty effective. What do you think about that? He said, I'm not going to work for a government that kills innocent children. I don't care who, I don't care what their evil parents are. I'd murder their kidnapping parents in a flash. I wouldn't think about that twice. But no, that's not what we do, and that's not who we are. And I thought, all right, he's a good man. He was a really, really good man. Good man. Okay, moving on. Where did I put these questions? Oh, here we go. So many windows. So many windows. All right. Bob Neef. Good evening, Bill. Hello, Bob. Any comments on the passing of Jim Lovell and the impact of Apollo 13 on the American experiment? Mentioned the following a few months ago, and we'll share it again. This is original source material. The flight director's loop of the incident No PAO comments, no Walter Cronkite insight, just the raw director's loop. It's fascinating. And here's a YouTube link. Yeah, there's a little marker that says time since accident. And yeah, so it's just the Apollo 13 logo, which, by the way, the Apollo 13 flight badge says Ex Luna Scientia, which means going to the moon for science, I guess, something like that. But Apollo 13 patch doesn't have the names of the crew on it either, and the reason for that is that they swapped Ken Mattingly off the mission, 3 days before they flew? Otherwise, it would have said Level Hayes Mattingly instead of Level Hayes Swigert. I've got that pulled up, and I'll try to listen to it. Bob, as far as Lovell goes, Lovell is the he's kind of the heartbreak story of the Apollo program. Went to the moon twice, and the only guy who went to the moon twice and didn't land. I think that's correct. I think that's correct. I know my Apollo pretty well. Now, John, there were a number of people that went to the moon twice. John Young went to the moon twice. I think Cernan went to the moon twice. I think both Young and Cernan were on Apollo 10, if memory serves. But they both got to go back and land. But Lovell went twice and didn't get to land, and that kind of sucks. So, yeah, and as far as the handling of it, that was NASA, and the NASA of Apollo 13 is not here anymore and hasn't been here since the beginning of the space shuttle program. NASA became a standing army of administrators instead of a team of highly motivated engineers and pilots. So, there you go. Jacob Belchuk. Hail, Bill. Is conservatism dead? Popular question I see in the comment sections I frequently ask. If conservatism was so good, show me one thing it conserved. What say you? Well, short answer is private ownership of guns. Just drop that one if you want. John Ogilvy with a super chat says what I feel very strongly too. I hope that at least one of the Apollo moonwalkers is still with us when America returns to the moon. Yes, I would like that chain to go unbroken. And I'm deeply concerned now. Deeply concerned that it will be broken. Although I have to say, I haven't seen Dave Scott. Is it 3 left now? Aldrin, Scott, and Schmidt. Oh no, and Mitchell from Apollo 14. Shepard, Rusa, Mitchell. I think there's 4 left. I don't think Buzz is going to last a lot longer. Dave Scott looked healthy last time I saw him, but he's getting on in years. I think Harrison Schmidt looks pretty good. He looks like he's got a few miles left on him. So I sure would hope that would be the case. But back to Jacob's question, is conservatism dead? It's like conservatism has never been more dominant. Progressivism is dead. What did it conserve? It conserved constitutional freedoms. Conservatism conserved your First Amendment right to say whatever you want to. It conserved your Second Amendment right to defend your life without permission from the government. It's conserved. It's conserved the fundamental fabric of the country, which has been badly damaged but not destroyed. The fabric of this country has been worn and eroded, but it's never torn in terms of our constitutional rights that I can see. You still get to say whatever you want to. It's conserved. The list of things that it's conserved are endless. It's conserved private enterprise. It's conserved private property. It's conserved innovation. We still invent pretty much everything in the world. China, which is our nearest economic neighbor, is constantly stealing our stuff, and that's why they're as close to us as they are. But they're constantly in second place because they're a generation behind everything that we do. All of the significant AI work is being done by America. China's had some successes there, that's true, but they're not anything close to where we are. Thank you. Ray Berry says, number of British deaths, this is a slavery thing, while ending the slave trade primarily through the Royal Navy's West African Squadron is estimated at around 1,600 to 2,000 sailors. So 2,000 sailors died on the British end, 600,000 Americans died. And by the way, Americans didn't bring slaves to the colonies. The British did. There were no Americans when the slaves came to the colonies. So we've conserved everything worth conserving. The question you might want to ask them is, what has progressivism done? What has the woke movement done? People have never been this unhappy. Nobody buys what they're selling. Nobody buys their entertainment, and nobody buys their politics, which is why they have to rig elections and import voters. These immigrants are here to do the jobs that Americans won't do, and that's vote for Democrats. But conservatism is not only ascendant, it's rampant. The Democratic Party has an approval rating in the 20s now. And they have no leadership, and they've got no platform, and they don't appear to have learned anything from the 2024 election. You look at conservative movies, and they're just slamming them out of the box office. Something like Deadpool and Wolverine, or Top Gun Maverick, and you compare that to Snow White and all the rest of these bombs. It's the left that's in full retreat everywhere, and that's with the headwind that they got by getting billions of dollars of tax money. What Doge did was, when it cut U.S. aid, it cut billions of dollars of funding for progressive causes. We've been paying for our own opposition for 30 years, and now we're doing the redistricting thing. Trump's just going like there's no tomorrow, man. He's just kicking ass. Plus, and my right angle is tomorrow morning, in 11 hours from now. Kurt says, what was, or Kerwonton says, Deadpool and Wolverine were conservative. What did I miss? Well, it was a buddy movie. Neither of them were gay. It wasn't about, girl bosses, and it was, I know the villain was a female, but she wasn't karate chopping 210-pound security guards. It was just a fun movie. The main thing about conservatism now is that we're fun. So my topic tomorrow is Make America Fun Again, and the Sydney Sweeney thing has just really put a crack in the dam. I've got 5 or 6. This would be fun to edit. 5 or 6 videos of these girls doing the recruitment videos for sororities, and they're just having a blast. They're not ashamed of themselves. What the left was trying to do was not only to, wasn't the Sydney Sweeney thing wasn't just an anti-white thing. The reaction to it was anti-beauty. It was anti-standards. They had thought they had talked us into believing that these, sea mammals on the cover of magazines meant that nobody's more beautiful than anybody else, and that all beauty is subjective, and everybody's beautiful, and all the rest of this nonsense that they believe. And so it's even deeper than that. What the Sydney Sweeney thing did was it showed that there are such things that say, yes, this is better. This is a better looking woman than some of the sea cows that they'd been putting on the covers, and everybody knows it. And it was a case of the boy saying the emperor's got no clothes, and in these videos of these sorority girls, they are just knocking it out of the park. Just knocking it out of the park. They are having so much fun, and they look so good, and they're so happy, and it makes the left crazy to see happy, good-looking women, especially. They just don't know what to do. So yeah, Jacob, we're winning across the board, and I pity those poor bastards. I really do. Jacob again, hail Bill. A second question, if I have time and voice. Did leftist gender politics destroy libertarianism as a viable political strategy? One of the problems, I don't think gender politics did. I think the problem with libertarianism is it's very hard to define what libertarianism is. One of the things that I've found about dealing with libertarians is that every one of them is, in the race to be more libertarian than thou. And in my opinion, unbridled libertarianism is as utopian a philosophy as unbridled communism is. The idea that everybody's going to do the right thing just based on their own self-interest works for a lot of people who are, people who are high trust, responsible people. But I still want my airplanes inspected for maintenance issues, and so, their inability to really define what their message really is. Every time I talk about libertarianism, I get lots and lots of libertarians telling me that's not libertarianism, which sounds an awful lot like Marxists, to be honest with you. Although God knows, if I had to pick which one I would identify with, I'm going libertarian all the way. I have a lot of libertarian views. I personally believe you only need 3 laws. I genuinely do believe this, that you only need, number 1, don't hurt anybody. Number 2, don't take their stuff. And number 3, do what you promised to do. I really think you could run an entire society just on that and leave the interpretation up to the courts. So that's a fundamentally libertarian idea. But yeah, I don't think gender politics assert them. I just think that they libertarianism is kind of a negative space. Marxists will tell you what they're for. We're for a big, strong government, and we're going to take all these things. We're going to do this. And libertarians are basically just saying, just leave us alone. And it's a harder thing to define. Lutheran Carnivore says we can have victory if pro-life people vote for bills of abortion, which they vote against. Yeah, so, there you go. Deporter-in-Chief says libertarians are mostly good until you get to foreign policy, then they go off the rails. I kind of tend to agree with that, too. I just have a lot of, I'm a conservatarian. But where I depart from the libertarians is I think that government is necessary. State is not, but government is. And I'm rather proud of that pithy little sentence of mine. I just want a government that fits in the box it came in. There you go. Moving on, Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. You mentioned the firewalls and afterburners in your pitch reel for a Truth Bomb series. Would it be a good idea to put all of them in playlists on YouTube? Yes, I will. I've got my favorites. I did about 200 of them. And when all of this dust settles, I will I'll add them to the website, at least the best of. So there you go. There are reports that California is pushing the sale of property in Palisades specifically to Chinese buyers. What a shock. Also, that area will be rezoned for multifamily housing. Yes, I've heard they want to do Section 8 housing in Pacific Palisades. Have you heard anything about it or the delaying of building permits? Absolutely, they're delaying building permits. And Gavin Newsom wants to put low-income housing in the most valuable real estate in the city of Los Angeles, in the county of Los Angeles. Now, you can force that, but I can tell you what will happen if you shove that down people's throats. People will start leaving Pacific Palisades, and they'll go to buy a 7 times larger house in Nashville or Franklin or someplace like that. And then Pacific Palisades will become less and less valuable real estate, and revenues will go down, and the collapse will continue. So by all means, go ahead. I've said this many times. I hear it all the time from good-natured people, and I want everybody to understand that I genuinely appreciate all the times that people said you need to get out of California. I really genuinely appreciate it. I know where it comes from. I live in a little section of small-town America in the middle of Los Angeles. I get to live in a place where it's air-conditioned outdoors at night in the summer and the winter, and in the 8 months out of the year, it's air conditioned in the day as well. We have mountains with snow on it. I have personally gone surfing and skiing on the same day. It's the most beautiful place I've ever lived, and I love California. It's just the idiots that run it that I'm not so fond of. So, with that said, my attitude towards Californians is the same as my attitude towards New Yorkers. If you want to vote for the socialist, okay, vote for the socialist, and keep voting for them until the city becomes unmanageable, and then there will be eventually a correction. We'll find our Giuliani, and and it'll work for 20 years until people get stupid again. I have a theory, and I really do believe this theory, that the nicer the climate is, the stupider the people are. Doesn't hold true. Well, I was going to say it doesn't hold true for Florida, but it does, because Florida's not a pleasant place to live climate-wise. I lived there for 25 years, I guess, on and off. If I had to leave California, almost certainly would be Florida that we'd go back to. I lived there 25 years, went to the University of Florida. But that place, man, there are 3 months out of the year where it's really lovely. And the rest of it is just, my God. So, we don't know, we'll see. So yeah, Road Rider. Hi, Bill. Keep up the good fight, no matter how bad you think it is right now. Website frustrations and all. You and your wife are healthy. The sweet meteor of death didn't just strike the San Fernando Valley, and Kamala Harris is still not our president. Amen to that, and thanks for the kind words. My question: during Biden's administration, one person or group of people had to be responsible for deciding which illegal alien border crosser went to which city and which state, and made the decision if they were to be bused, flown, driven there, and which NGO would help. It had to be organized. Paper, text, email trails. With all the talk of illegals tipping the census, is this the type of investigation a competent FBI would pursue, or am I just playing whack-a-mole with teeny moles? You're the best and have been for all these years. Thank you. You're whipping those commies right out of their boots. I remember the first time I wrote that, and I remember the first time I said it at a public speaking event too. Thank you very much for that, Road Rider. The most hopeful thing for me, in terms of like the big picture of justice, was that tweet that Dan Bongino put out a couple weeks ago. I know Dan Bongino. I don't know him super well, but I know he was a guest on my show when I was doing the show for NRA TV 9 years ago, and I've seen his stuff, and I think Dan Bongino is a patriot. I think he's fearless, and so when the Epstein thing happened, I never doubted him. In fact, I really was at the position where I was saying, look, Bongino and Cash Patel the same way. If they say this is it, then they know better than I do, and I trust them. And then when Bongino threatened to quit over how Bondi handled it, because Bongino's personal reputation took such a hit, I thought even more highly of him. I'm very, 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 very glad he stayed. Very glad. But about 3 weeks ago, Bongino put out a text that basically said, a lot of stuff is happening behind the scenes. I know people are frustrated that they can't tell what's going on, but I assure you that the wheels are in motion. And then he said, I have seen things that make my blood run cold. Just stuff that defies imagination. And we're going to get to, he said, there's no way to run a republic. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I tried to think about what would make Dan Bongino's blood run cold. I mean, here's a guy who is a Secret Service agent for 10 years or 12 or something, who is mentally tough enough to throw himself in front of a bullet and who also worked as a cop in New York, so has seen everything that there is to see. There's no amount of gore or heinous human activity that Dan Bongino is not very familiar with, and I'm trying to imagine what it would take that would make his blood run cold, and the only thing I can think of really is 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 a degree of just come out and say it, is that this pedophilia ring is real and shocking, and that it is going to be dealt with. I just can't think of any other thing that's on the radar that would make Dan Bongino speak that way. If Dan Bongino said, "I've seen things that made me furious," then I would think maybe corruption or, all the stuff that you just talked about. But he didn't say that. He said things that made him just, I don't think blood run cold is exactly what he said, but it's something very, very similar to that. And I thought, what would it take to knock Dan Bongino off his perch? And that's the only thing I can think of. I don't know if anybody's heard the alleged Leo Panetta audio, but it is beyond horrifying. It's just beyond horrifying. And I think that's really true. I think there are a lot of again, I used to be, and I'm still cautious about these things. I still think about them critically, but a lot of these symbols and secrets and all of this talk about pizza and Ellen buying pizza for everybody at the Academy Awards and all of this stuff, which is their way of basically flipping off the rubes. It's not what Leon said, Dave. It is an audio of a man speaking and apparently whipping a young boy, and the boy is screaming and crying at the top of his lungs, and somebody is shouting out things like, "I'm your daddy," and it sounds exactly like him. Doesn't mean it's him. That's why I said alleged, and but I mean it sounds exactly like him. And there was a guy who I forget his name. He was a really low-level actor who exposed all these things. Was talking about all the things that had happened to the two Coreys and all of this stuff. And the next thing you know, he jumped off a bridge. He wasn't suicidal. There's a photo of him sitting on the edge of a bridge, looking like he's about to get shot in the head. Isaac Cappy. Yeah. And the bizarre artwork. Kerwin Tan knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's all these symbols that mean different things, and they put them everywhere. And the allegations are simply pretty much unbelievable, really unbelievable. And when you hear it, it takes on a life of itself. And I suspect that Dan Bongino not only heard a lot of these things, I think he saw a lot of these things. And, again, I have to keep saying this. If 2019 Bill heard me talking now, he'd think that I'd hit my head on something, and I did. I did. I hit my head on the COVID thing and the Fauci thing and the Comey thing and all the rest of it. There are large numbers of children that are missing every year. This I heard this stuff about what is it, adrenochrome? Is that what it's called? Which is apparently blood from children that are frightened and they get adrenaline in their bloodstream. It's supposed to be a youth sort of thing. Even 2 years ago, I would have just laughed that out of the room. But I'm not laughing now. I'm not saying it's real, but I'm saying that that something Dan Bongino has uncovered made him queasy. Red Raider says, does he have the strength to prevail? I think he does. I think he's got a bulletproof mind. I feel the same way about Kash Patel. Lapco92 says, don't forget about Operation Northwoods. There are powerful, evil people that would mushroom cloud New York City out of spite if we ruin their game. Yeah, I'm really beginning to believe all this. Infidel says adrenochrome's not a real thing. From what I've read, I wouldn't. Again, I would not. I'm perfectly willing to admit that the whole thing is an illusion and rumors and not true. But I am at the point now where, again, I'm trying to think what possibly could have caused that kind of reaction from Dan. Timeline Junkie Films over on YouTube says you go far enough into conspiracies and it's almost impossible to come out the other side not believing in God. Yes, because I completely agree with you, because some of this stuff reaches levels of depravity and evil that, and if the extent is true, then it becomes almost overwhelming evidence of evil as a manifest power, as an actual supernatural influence on events in the world. You can't really go. You can't. If all this stuff were true, you can't define it without using evil. And if you you would be defining evil out of any meaning if you tried to do that. So I don't know. Representative Anna Paulina Luna said on Joe Rogan they're wrapping up the JFK investigation. We'll be putting out a summary of their findings soon, eventually doing the same for RFK, MLK, and UFOs. Okay. I thought they released all the files. Once again, I predict that these will all be non-events. That there will not be incontrovertible proof, and the burden of proof is on the conspiracy guys for this one. Lapco92 says again with the super chat, I hope God is real because evil certainly is. It sure seems to be. But in any event, you know what's interesting, and I mentioned this to Shelley today, just as a quick aside. What's interesting is, what's the first example of this? I had an example from 1945. What was it? What's interesting is the further away we get from events, the more likely people are to believe that either they didn't happen or the official story is not true. Nobody doubted the Holocaust in 1946. Nobody doubted that Lee Harvey Oswald shot John Kennedy in 1963. Nobody doubted that we landed on the moon in 1969. Nobody doubted that 19 Islamic terrorists hijacked airplanes in 2001. Nobody. The closer you were to it, the more clear the belief was in because you saw it happen with your own eyes. And all of these conspiracy things happen because after a amount of time, people are able to take a look at the evidence and find things that appear to be either quirky or maybe not make sense. For example, it's perfectly reasonable for people to say, how come we can't see stars in the sky on the moon? That's a reasonable question. What's not a reasonable question is to say that the people who created the moon landing hoax forgot to put the stars in. There's that. Wesley Bruce with the super chat says it's not adrenochrome, it's another compound. It's legally banned. There were Christian scholars warning about this 50 years ago. Maybe there's nothing to it, but I'm at the point now where, there you go. Now, Dave Big Booty's got my trump card. You can't see the camera crew reflected in Aldrin's helmet either. It's one of my favorites. It's going to be my closing argument on the moon landing. Is that when Kubrick shot 2001, he put the astronauts on the moon. The moon doesn't look like the way it looked in 2001 Space Odyssey. The moon is very different in terms of texture. But in 2001 Space Odyssey, he put the astronauts on the moon with clear visors. Every science fiction movie prior to that had clear visors. All of the interpretations of being in space on the moon, lost in space, all of it, had clear visors on the helmets. So when they showed up on the moon with gold visors, it was kind of like, oh, you can't see their faces. They had gold visors because it's so bright on the moon. But my point is that if they had showed up on the moon with clear visors, nobody would have said, wait a minute, they don't have gold protection against the brightness of the sun. Everybody expected them to have clear visors. In fact, I mentioned in Apollo 11 what we saw. There is one shot from that Aldrin took from the lunar module of Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon with his gold visor up where you can actually see his face. But my point is, nobody would have been surprised if the astronauts on the moon had clear visors. So why would you put a gold fisheye lens, a fisheye mirror on the visors? Why would you do that? They're exactly like those fisheye things that you have on those blind intersections so that you can see if there's a car coming. It's not even a flat plane reflection. Mortimer Duke says, did we land on the moon or not? Yes, we absolutely did. There's no question we did. And I was there. I saw the thing happen live. I saw Apollo 13 go off the pad. But my point is, why would you put a mirror on the visor, a wide angle mirror on the visors of the astronauts if they're going to be looking into the camera and they're lit from behind? Those visors would reflect not only the lights, but the camera crew. They'd reflect everything. It just, tell me why you would do that. The reason I got this idea was somebody grabbed one frame. They grabbed one frame of a video, and they said, "Look, see, you can see the reflection of a crew member in the guy's visor." It looked nothing like a crew member. It was a blob. It looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy. But they said, "See, there's a reflection of a crew member," and that's when I realized, wait a minute, where are the reflections of all the crew members? I love it when they say that the shadows aren't parallel. That's evidence that they use two lights. Well, if they use two lights, there'd be two shadows. The reason that the lines appear not to be parallel is the same reason that when you park your car, the lines on your parking space don't appear to be parallel either. You ever used the rear camera on a car and backed into a parking space and seen how the lines converge like this? It's a wide-angle camera on the back of that. But those are parallel lines. I got all this stuff nailed down, man. I'm really nailed down. Oh, this is funny. Race Bannon, what a cool frickin' name, dude. What a cool name. Race Bannon 19 says, didn't the Soviets have Luna 15 in lunar orbit during the Apollo 11 landing anyway? Yes, they did. And I remember this because I remember my dad. We saw the moon landing from the penthouse at the Plaza Hotel, New York City. And somewhere during that discussion, they said that the Soviets had Luna 15 in orbit. And my dad said, if those bastards use that thing to smash into our guys, we're going to war. I just remember him just clear as day. If those bastards use that probe to smash into our Apollo 11 guys, then that's it. Send the nukes, That's great. So anyway, moving on. We got a Marusha Dark, Dave Olson, Eric Blake, Steve Young, Marusha Dark, and not doing two, Eli Noor. So I'll take the first one. Marusha Dark, topic: the black pillaning. You probably already saw Beto O'Rourke's recent tirade of saying "F the rules" and to gerrymander every state. I've seen a lot of centrist and right-leaning people echo the same sentiment about F the rules, F principles. Sticking to principles only results in losing. This includes everyone's favorite self-identified milquetoast fence-sitter Tim Pool and his staff. This in spite of all the tremendous Trump wins on the economy, peace, trade, immigration, etc. I'd always thought the principles mattered most when times are hard, and that's why they're principles, and the reason we know the left are presently the bad guys is precisely because they violate rules and principles. But how do sentiments like this make our side any better than the Bedouins of the world? And if we don't get to exercise principles now, then when do we get to exercise them? Since we all know government never willingly gives up power once seated. Seems to me there are two ways to lose. One is your enemies defeat you, and the other is you become them. Thoughts? Yeah. There are two thoughts about this. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln used his emergency war powers as commander-in-chief to do any number of things that were constitutionally illegal. On the libertarian side of his excesses, he banned anti-union press, shut down anti-war newspapers in the North. The Confederacy didn't. The Confederacy allowed the printing of anti-war newspapers during the war, and the South lost. That's not the only reason they lost, but that's one of the reasons they lost. The Emancipation Proclamation, which everybody speaks so highly of, and rightfully so, is a first step to get halfway there. Yes, he suspended habeas corpus. He did all that. He put people in jail, sometimes without due process. But the Emancipation Proclamation was a wartime act, and they cover it beautifully in the Lincoln movie. It's like actually watching Lincoln. Just as a brief aside, Daniel Day-Lewis always gets the voice first. Once he gets the voice, then he get the character. So he got the voice first in, in There Will Be Blood, and it took a long time to get Lincoln's voice. Lincoln had a very high-pitched voice. There's no recording of his voice, but somebody said that when he spoke to a crowd, he said, "Mr. Cheerman," and he spelled it Cheerman. So Lincoln had a kind of a thin, reedy voice, and Daniel Day-Lewis captured that perfectly. Captured Lincoln perfectly. Captured his humor, captured his sorrow. I know Lincoln really well, and it was a magnificent job. But as Lincoln says in the movie Lincoln, I used my war powers to take Southern slaves as spoils of war, but I took them as property, and our entire idea is that they're not property. Furthermore, I can't negotiate with the Southern states because I'm not going to admit that they're a nation. The states are not rebelling against the Union. The people in the states are rebelling against the Union. He was talking about how thinly sliced, morally, how thinly sliced all of this was, and how far out on a moral limb he was. And Lincoln, who beyond any understanding of mine has been really demonized lately, it's astonishing by conservatives. It's really genuinely shocking and disgusting to me. But Lincoln basically said, I did these things to win the war. And he did. And the thing that bears on your question, Marusha, is after the war was over, those freedoms were restored. They were restored. A more recent example, which I use all the time, is the way that the Marines fought the Japanese in, well, not just the Marines, the way the United States fought the Japanese in World War II. In the first time we encountered the Japanese in any real numbers was at Guadalcanal, and during the very first battle on Guadalcanal, there were a number of Japanese wounded, and after the fight was over and the Japanese had retreated, the U.S. sent medics out towards, took care of our guys and took care of wounded Japanese, and they'd come upon a wounded Japanese and 2 or 3 corpsmen around this guy, and the Japanese guy'd pull a grenade and blow him up and kill them all. They would, the Japanese would capture Americans, torture them so that other Americans would go out after them, screaming at nighttime, just in order to do that. The Japanese used all kinds of tricks, false surrenders. Most famous story I'm aware of also during Guadalcanal, there were a number of Japanese on this small little island, lots of little islands dotted around there in the slot between Guadalcanal and the other islands in the Bismarcks, I guess it is. And and there was a Japanese garrison on like Gilligan's Island size island, tiny little island, and they'd been cut off for months, and they were out of food and they were starving, and the Marines could watch them through binoculars, just see them getting thinner and thinner. So one day the Japanese are waving this big white flag, and some young Marine lieutenant says, "We'll go over there, take the surrender. We'll bring them, bring them over and feed these guys." And so they took a squad of like 12 Marines over there, and armed, obviously. And the Japanese are waving their white flag, and the Marines got out of their boat and started walking towards the white flag, and then they dropped the white flag and opened up with machine guns and killed them all. And any of the Marines that had the globe and anchor tattoos on their arms, they hacked those arms off and put them into a pile. And after that, they didn't take prisoners, and they didn't provide mercy. It was a no quarter war in the Pacific. Now, we had to fight them that way, because if we didn't, we would have lost. The interesting question, and the answer to your question, in my opinion, is these men who fought brutally, who wouldn't take prisoners, went back home and became decent people again. They didn't turn into monsters. The Japanese, I understand the Japanese had a different cultural ethic. I find it repugnant, but that you can say that's a difference of cultures, but whatever the case may be, Americans found it repulsive, but we fought that way. We fought brutally against a brutal enemy, and we had to fight that way, otherwise we would have lost. And when it was over, we went back to being decent people, and we turned the nation of Japan into decent people as a benefit of this. Now, in the comments you write, I don't personally find Lincoln a comforting comparison, given my own personal reservations about those actions you mentioned. You have the luxury of having reservations about those actions because it wasn't on your shoulders to save the Union. It was on his shoulders to save the Union. And if he had not issued the Emancipation Proclamation, then Britain almost certainly would have come into the war on the side of the Confederates, and we would have lost that war. So it's very easy to say, I'm uncomfortable with these decisions, when you don't have to make the decisions. There's a beautiful scene in Oppenheimer where at the end of the movie, Oppenheimer comes to Truman. This is after they've dropped the bomb. And Oppenheimer comes in and says, "I have to tell you, Mr. President, I'm just feeling very guilty about this, and I'm really wondering, worrying about the future and so on." And Truman turns to him and says, "Do you actually think that the Japanese people that we dropped those bombs on are wondering who made this bomb? No, they don't give a goddamn about who made the bomb. They care about who made the decision to drop the bomb, and that was me. Okay? I made that decision. Now get out of my office, you crybaby." And I thought, man, yeah. And he said, "Don't let him back in here again." That's exactly right. I'm so tired of people sitting in moral judgment of people who didn't have the luxury of hindsight, nor the luxury of their own peace of mind. People who saw the threat and the danger and took a walk beyond the limits of their own moral comfort in order to save this thing that was worth saving. So, there you go. That's it. Damon Walker said, "And you had the luxury of sitting at home during Vietnam." Don't know if you're talking to me, Damon. It's not true. When we came home, most of them were in disarray. Why don't you people understand what war is like when you don't understand? Are you talking to me about having the luxury of sitting home during Vietnam, Damon, in YouTube there? I'd just like an answer to that. I just didn't know if you're talking to me or whether you're just generally speaking. I'm just waiting to see. come back to that. Dave Olson, speed round, much to the disappointment of Mr. Blake. So, quick question. There are going to be some desperados in the colonies, guys who aren't there for better lives for their families, but prey upon those families. How enthusiastically can you make the case for Second Amendment rights without coming across as preachy? Yeah, because I was just going to say, if you're talking about me having the comfort of sitting through Vietnam and the luxury of my couch, the reason that I sat through the Vietnam War and the luxury of my couch was because I was 13 years old when the war ended. So that might have been a moral failing on my part, having not swum to Vietnam. But since I did compete very hard to get into the Air Force Academy in 1976, 3 years after the war ended, when I was 16 or 17. I'm not entirely sure I buy that. You're just a armchair warrior, and put your money where your mouth is. If that was intended in my direction. If it wasn't, then there you go. Lindy says, my cousin was in Bataan. I currently live in Hiroshima. I've heard Hiroshima is absolutely beautiful. There is it's probably worth doing. Just give me 1 minute. It's worth doing, because I've talked about it before. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to do a screen grab, folks. Google Earth is absolutely amazing. Start exploring, yes, blah, blah, come on. Okay, look at that. Sure looks round to me. God, Africa's huge. So where do I want to put this? So most people who know the story of Hiroshima know that in the heart of the city there's a very unusual structure. It's a T-shaped bridge. It's a bridge that has an intersection in the middle of the bridge. Hang on a second. It's just good general education stuff. So two things I want to show you. I'll just take this into Photoshop so it'll just drop in. I won't have to rescale it. 1 second. Just 1 second. Two things that you should just see. I think it's just good for you to know. Yeah, it's going to be. Hang on. It's worth it. 1920 by 1080. There we go. So this is obviously from Google Earth, which means this is modern Hiroshima. But here's two pictures I'll show you. One second. Oh, where did I end up saving that? Damn it. I was really struck by this. So here's the first picture. There we go. Hang on YouTube. So that's Hiroshima today. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that T-shaped bridge. That was the bomb aim point. Um, that in the upper left-hand corner where that strange road joins a bridge, in the middle of the bridge, right where the river forks. That's the aim point that the bombardier on Enola Gay was aiming for. But what I wanted to show you was where is it? Yep, let's go to Street View here. It's just amazing. It really is. Come on. Sorry, gotta try this again. Just 1 second. There it is. So here we go. This is a picture of downtown Hiroshima. Just working on it. 1 second. I think it's worth it. I was kind of surprised when I actually did this for the first time. Okay, here we go. So here's a picture of a street in Hiroshima. Twitch. Here it comes to YouTube. About as nondescript as it can get, right? I mean, that's about as boring a picture as you can find, and certainly looks no different than any other Japanese city, and looks, in fact, mostly like a lot of different cities. What you're looking at is the hypocenter of the Hiroshima bomb. The bomb detonated directly above this spot. You see that little tiny little image that those two people are looking at on the right up there? That is a plaque. That tiny little thing is a plaque that says that 1,000 feet or whatever it was, 1,500 feet above that spot is where the atom bomb went off. And I was so blown away by the sheer banality of it, by the sheer ordinariness of it. Very close to this location, very close, just tens of yards away, or maybe 100 yards away, something like that. In fact, I can tell you how far away, probably. Give me 1 second. Come on. Tools. Here we go. You. From here to, it's 150 meters, so that's 450 feet. 4 football domes away. Is this. which is, come on, Bill, you can do it. Stop. I don't need this anymore. Oh, okay. Hang on. Is this structure? I want to take a look here. Yep. This is just across the river. Oops, that doesn't look very good there. Let's go the other way. It's a miracle, really, that you can do this. There we go. Last picture for you. Hang on. Fun with geography. So this is taken across the river from the first picture you saw. It's just another, like I said, it's 450 feet away. It's from the Berry Center. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So my final picture for you is this one. I forget what this building was. Come on, you son of... just hate this Streamlabs desktop. There it is. That structure that you see there across the river, the hypocenter is behind that building, about 450 feet, so football field and a half. Behind it is where the bomb exploded. The bomb aim point would be to the left of this picture, just out of frame. And that structure is, I think, the only structure that they purposely left standing, because it was one of the very few brick structures close to the epicenter. There was a dome there, and there's a shrine there, and thank you. Marisha Dark says it's the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall. And there's not a person in the world, me certainly not among them, who thinks that the atomic bombs were a good thing. And gee, I'm really glad they dropped them. But the atomic bombs were the least bad thing. And if this hadn't happened, instead of 800,000 people, 700,000 people at Hiroshima and another 500,000 or 600,000 at Nagasaki, instead of 150,000 Japanese killed, there would have been 6 million killed, something like that. And that's Japanese. There would have probably been 1 million Americans killed. And for people who say that no, they were trying to surrender, they weren't trying to surrender. Everybody in the Japanese high command was saying we'll fight the Americans with bamboo spears. And as long as we have 30 million Japanese people, victory is inevitable. So just a little history lesson there. There is the center of the of where the bomb detonated. It certainly didn't make Hiroshima uninhabitable. You could walk down that street without a second thought about where you were. And I find that to be actually extremely poetic and beautiful. I find that to be something on some level much more significant and poignant than if there had been an enormous, obelisk there. Just the fact that, yeah, right over that spot, that's where it happened. Most people just simply wouldn't believe it. When I did the atomic bombs afterburner, I pointed out that if you took Little Boy, the Hiroshima bomb, and detonated it rather, directly over that funny-looking, futuristic restaurant at the center of LAX, you know, the four-legged thing. If you put the Hiroshima bomb 1,500 feet above that restaurant in the center of LAX and detonated that bomb, then the lethal blast area would remain inside of the airport boundary. So, it's not what we have spent our lives coming to fear, which are hydrogen weapons, which are thousands of times more powerful. So, anyway, I just thought I'd get that off my chest. But greetings to Hiroshima from America and all your American friends over here. Speaking for myself and several million, many millions of World War II veterans and an awful lot of present Americans, I have the highest respect for the Japanese people. I'm not giant fans of the Chinese government or the just not a big fan of Chinese culture, but Japanese culture, I have the highest respect for, and the bravery and the perseverance of what the Japanese put up with, and how their soldiers, deal with that is amazing. Thank you, Dave. Back to your question: how am I going to deal with the outlaws in the colonies? Well, I don't have to make a case for Second Amendment rights if there are guys out there who come in and murder the family of your neighbors. There's, as I mentioned, there's a scene where Jake borrows a robot from his closest neighbor, and he calls him back to say, I'll either drive it back or send it back, and doesn't get any answer. And these guys on the frontier have a policy that if they don't get an answer back, from a radio call within 2 hours, then they're gonna go check it out. So he goes and checks it out and finds out that the entire family's been massacred by murderous criminals and raiders, and so now he doesn't get to call 911. There is no 911. He has to protect his family, and he has to do it against professional killers, and he has to use his family as bait. There you go. Lindy says, I'm American, I just live here, Bill. You're welcome anytime. Thank you. I know a few things not on tours to show you, but I'm retiring in a few years and moving home to the U.S. hopefully. Well, Lynn, thank you for the offer, and if I find myself able to get there, I'll absolutely love it. Fiery Waco says, MacArthur should have executed Hirohito and installed himself on the throne. The Japanese would have respected that. I respectfully disagree. I think MacArthur did that exactly perfectly. What happened was the Japanese saw that Hirohito was subservient to MacArthur. If they had killed Hirohito, that would have been a religious offense. By allowing Hirohito to remain on the throne, MacArthur preserved the social fabric of Japan, but everybody knew, including the emperor, who made it very clear that the emperor does what MacArthur tells him to do. That's why the occupation of Japan was so shockingly peaceful. I think if they'd executed Hirohito, there would have been a bloodbath. I think they would have lost their minds. Really lost their minds. So, there you go. Eric Blake, tonight the case of the D.C. domination. So, Bill, what are your thoughts on Trump taking authority over the D.C. police force? Frankly, I'm just curious whether Washington, D.C. being run by anyone other than the federal government was ever a good idea in the first place, eh, Nixon? It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. What I'm seeing about the D.C. thing is that, needless to say, the left has lost their mind. But I have seen a couple of Facebook videos from people. In one case, there was a black man who said, man, it's never been so quiet here. It's never been so peaceful here. It's never been so comfortable here. The genius of Trump is is knowing you the 80-20 rule is built into nature the same way that the golden ratio, and is it the Fibonacci? Can never get the name right. The sequence that creates a spiral. There are laws of nature, and the 80-20 rule is one of them. You use 20% of your tools 80% of the time, and it applies to people as well. So first thing you need to understand about the DC thing, at least first thing I understood, is that no matter what happens, you're going to get 20% of the people who are going to be opposed. There will be 20% of the people that see any of these truth bomb videos. Many of the people, at least certainly people who follow me, in most cases, won't need to see it. 20% of the people will never admit that they're wrong. They will not, they cannot, ever admit that they're wrong. The flat earth people will never admit that they're wrong. They've been, well, it's not entirely true. They took a couple of them to Antarctica, and they admitted they were wrong. But if you're determined to not change your mind, then you never will. So there is going to be 20% of the people who are always going to say that this is a fascist move and so on. But Trump's genius, especially in his second term, seems to be that he's able to take a look at a situation, find out what the 80-20 on the situation is, and if the 80 is favorable, he'll act on it. 80% of Americans were in favor of border enforcement. 80% were in favor of deportations. 80% are in favor of just about everything. And because the left has made their entire political identity being opposed to what Trump does, once Trump picks the 80%, the left has no choice but to fall into the 20% and die on that hill. And again and again and again and again and again, he has trapped them, well, they've trapped themselves, but he's baited them into taking the 20% position. And I think this is what's going on with DC. I think that 80% of the people are going to realize that DC is much, good night, Lady Hawk, that DC is much safer once somebody decided to enforce the law. 20% of the people are never going to admit it. You're never going to hear Nancy Pelosi admit it. You will hear what's his name? I hate it when this happens. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Come on. Fetterman. Thank you. I was searching for John. It was John. Fetterman. Fetterman, I'm telling you, man, the way to cure progressivism is for all of them to have a stroke. A major stroke, and then they can recover their neuroplasticity. And when they come around again, they're thinking people. Fetterman, who seems to have made a pretty significant recovery, when he was elected, he was not there, but he seems to be doing much better, and God bless him. But Fetterman was being interviewed by somebody asking him questions as he's walking out of a building. This is, what do you think about Trump's tariffs? And Fetterman said, well, I was 100% opposed to them at the beginning. I thought they were going to lead to absolute anarchy and chaos and world disorder, but I was wrong. I was wrong about that. He was right. People did get in line, and they, we didn't have these retaliatory things, and the economy didn't tank, and I thought it would, but it didn't. Trump was right about that. I was wrong. That's a guy I can live with, man. I can live with Democrats like that. I think that's probably what's going to happen, Eric. I think most people are going to realize that, hey, it's good to enforce the law. And if they can do it in D.C., then maybe they can start to get a glimmer of it, the voters in Baltimore and St. Louis and Oakland, Atlanta. But it's a pretty deep trench that they're in. And Marisha says Trump has been marketing the D.C. things being good for the journalists and politicians, attacking them as well. They live there, right? The journalists and the politicians and the Democratic politicians live there. They're the ones, well, obviously, the politicians that live out in, the nicer suburbs. But which I think is the highest zip code, highest income zip code in the country. But nevertheless, the lower level people all live in D.C. and they're the ones who are going to feel the change. So I was there just a couple months ago, and I don't know. It was a weird experience. On some level, the town felt really tawdry, and kind of small. And at the same time, coming out of Reagan, driving along, and you look over there, and there's the frickin' Capitol building, and the Capitol building just doesn't look real. If you spend a lot of time in Washington, I'm sure you get over it. But if you've only been there a few times, it doesn't look real. It's a magnificent structure, magnificent. It's absolutely breathtaking, and when you realize that this is the spindle of the world, the entire planet rotates around the center of that dome. It's a shocking thing to see, really. I really hope they can get this. Many, many reasons why I'd like this Ukraine war to be over, but one of them is I would like to visit Russia. I was going to when I married a Russian woman, and we just didn't get to it. Then COVID happened, and then the Ukraine war happened. But I'd very much like to go to Moscow. I'd like to walk into Lenin's tomb. I'd like to be in Red Square. I'd like to see the Kremlin. I'd like to go to St. Petersburg. But it's a very different looking thing. One of the very small details in an Empire of Terror, but one that was important enough to me, that they actually put it into the opening credits, which is the best opening credits I've ever seen for a documentary, honestly, on Empire of Terror. I was blown away by the production values on that show for Daily Wire. But the Kremlin walls were originally painted white. And when the Kremlin is painted white, instead of it looking like a red brick fortress, it looks like a fairy tale winter fantasy castle. It's just absolutely magical. Wesley says, careful, Putin may have you on a list. Yes, which doesn't concern me too much, because while I would like to go to visit Russia, I have no desire, I have no need to go visit Russia. I am deeply concerned about my wife, who wants to go home and visit her mom. And she's not done anything. She's got dual citizenship, but she's married to a guy who called Vladimir Putin a murderer on a number of occasions. And I am deeply concerned about that. Deeply concerned. So anyway, there's that. Especially after the ballerina thing. We've got Steve Young and Eli Noor, and then we're calling it a night. Steve Young, evening, Bill. Question, is the national uproar against Republican congressional redistricting just Democrats declaring to the entire nation that they are not allowed to have the government they voted for? The Democrats are crying because we're using their playbook against them. And they can't take it. Here. Marusha was kind enough to put up a picture. It's picture night. Let me show you what the Kremlin looked like when it was when it was painted white. Hang on a second. Let me get back to my comments here. Okay, Sydney Sweeney's on a roll. Where did it go? Where did I put it? I just dragged it up here. Where the hell did it go? There it is. All right. Nope. the thing. That's so strange. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, here's what the Kremlin looks like painted white. For the opening credits of An Empire of Terror, they started with this image and then it kind of bled out to red, and it was really ominous and cool. Those guys they were just absolutely first class. Here you go, YouTube, hang on. Got a whole different vibe to it, doesn't it? A lot less intimidating. Marisha Dark's got an interesting point on this redistricting thing. Says that Ted Cruz said that Democrats are already fully saturated in terms of redistricting. They can't hope to add any more. They can only lose seats. Yeah, so basically what's happened is the Democrats have gerrymandered seats for so long that they've gotten that all of the power that the Democrats had at their peak is being eaten away bit by bit by Trump. No wonder they wanted him shot. So what's basically happening is we are ungerrymandering some of this gerrymandering, and they're going to permanently lose because of the Supreme Court decision. They're going to permanently lose somewhere between 10 and 20 seats. That's a huge deal. It's the House that is the one that's in danger of flipping really in the midterms, and Trump is just saying, hey, well, we're going to do another census. We've been doing it every 10 years, but the Constitution doesn't say you can only do it 10 years, if I understand the argument correctly. I may be wrong. And so basically, we're going to do another census, and we're not going to count illegals. So how many seats will California lose in a case like that? Yeah, I think Massachusetts is the worst case. Massachusetts, I think, is like 35% Republican in terms of how the vote goes, the national vote for president, but has 0 Republican representatives. 0. That's not, doesn't sound like democracy to me. It's funny how the Democratic Party is so anti-democratic pretty much all the time. And Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka makes an interesting point, which I had not considered at all. It's a really great point. Kirk says, remember, 15 seats is a 30-vote gap. It's not just taking 15 seats away from them; it's adding 15 seats to us. It's not a, that's right. It's not a 15-seat shift. It's a 30-seat shift. That's fabulous, man. That's just great. I can't handle all this winning. He said we get tired of it. I'm going to take him at his word. I'm not there yet. I think we got maybe one left, right? Yep, Eli Noor. In a topic similar to last week's discussion on race relations, I've noticed a lot of sympathetic comments and videos lately in regard to the German side in World War II. That's not good. Similar to the usual suspects' comments, I've noticed a lot of comments on videos that display the Islamization of Europe, state that we fought the wrong enemy. I'm sure Tucker Carlson and others have stoked those flames as well recently. Is this an issue that you've noticed, and how should we address this as conservatives? Eli, the Nazis were the second most evil people to live on this planet. Well, no, that's not true. They're the third most evil people. I think the communists were the second most evil people to live on this planet, and I think the Aztecs were the most evil people that ever walked the face of the earth. The Aztecs beggar imagination. The Aztec culture is absolutely beyond description. But there's nothing about Nazi Germany to admire. Nothing. They are everything about them is reprehensible, and for people who are complaining about the Islamization of Europe, and I complain about it let's not forget that the Nazis and the Muslims were allies. They were allies against the Jews. Hitler wasn't anti-Muslim. Hitler was he would have dealt with them eventually, but throughout the war he was pro-Muslim. And the Nazis deserve nothing but contempt. The great mystery is why the communists don't get the same level of contempt. And as I argued a number of times, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because there are no photos of what the Soviets did to their people. There's lots and lots of pictures of what happened in the death camps. And virtually none. Everybody's heard of Auschwitz. Most everybody with an education's heard of Treblinka. But in between those two, in terms of total number of people murdered in one spot, is Kolyma, which was a gulag in the far northeast, and something like 800,000, 900,000 people were murdered there, worked to death, and just buried in the tundra. No pictures, no death camps. The Soviets had something that the Germans never had, and that's space. So they just buried them in the tundra. And there's a story a documented story of a case where there was a summer thaw, and this entire side of this hill just dissolved and was just filled with corpses. I mean, just again and again and again. Anytime you hear people sympathizing with evil regimes because their interests and our interests may for a moment seem to be aligned, you're in real trouble. Wesley Bruce has a super chat real quick. He says, the Central American drug cartels are worshiping these Aztec gods again with a bit of Catholic language as camouflage. Yeah. Well, anytime you hear anybody agreeing with Nazis or communists or saying that, we fought the wrong enemy, no. You can do both at the same time. The Islamization of Europe needs to stop. Those people need to be ejected from European countries, the same way that we're ejecting illegal immigrants here. Some of those people immigrated to Britain legally. Many of them, just Britain as an example, many of them came legally. Many of them came illegally, and I think they're going to have to throw them all out, because what the great experiment at the end of the 20th century and early 21st century shows is that multiculturalism doesn't work anywhere. And when you have 30 or 40% of your population that you've invited in out of the kindness of your heart, determined to destroy the civilization that gave them refuge, you have two choices, and that is throw them out or surrender and die. And really recently, like within the last month or two, we're starting to see some real signs that Europeans have had enough, that the people of Europe have had enough. You're starting to see massive groups of people flying the Union Jack and the flag of St. George in England. You're starting to see big pushback in Ireland. They burned down a brand new mosque in Spain because some Muslims had raped a young woman or something. So this mosque was about to open, and they just burned the mosque down. Yeah. Brian Woodward says, this is why Tucker Carlson makes me so mad and sad. He's lost the plot so bad. Yeah, Tucker Carlson's lost his mind, man. He's done so much good, and I respect him for that. I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody about anything. But Tucker Carlson thinks that the U.S. committed a war crime by dropping the atomic bombs. Tucker Carlson has said, I'm not sending my kids, to go die for anything. It's like, well, you have that luxury, Tucker, because other people were willing to let their kids go and die for something. Yeah, he's and Candace Owens has gone completely bargain mad. So you don't have to. If somebody presents you with two boxes and you don't like either one of them, you don't have to go into either one of those boxes. You can have both. You can be a decent person and be in favor of these things. I don't want to see European Muslims exterminated or put in camps. I just think they need to go back to where they're comfortable. They are agitating for Sharia in Europe, and that is antithetical to European civilization. So there are plenty of countries in the world that do have Sharia, and they can go back to those. And I have no moral problem with that whatsoever. In fact, it's hard to imagine any examples of ingratitude bigger than Islam in Europe in the 21st century. It's almost unbelievable. Yeah, so you can go back to you can go right back to where you came from, and I don't think that Britain should be ashamed of that or feel any guilt about it. It's like the offer was, well, the elites made the offer because they need people to prop up their socialist state. You have to have a pyramid in order to have socialism. You can have 4 young people taking care of 1 old person, but you can't have 1 young person taking care of 4 old people. And Damon Walker says, I don't want to see war anymore. Me neither. But I would like Europeans to be able to walk down their streets at night without being mugged and raped and murdered. And, I was doing a live speaking event, and I was talking about the coexist bumper sticker. And I'm saying, that coexist bumper sticker, it's not those letters that are fighting each other. It's the big frickin' C that's the problem. Islam is at war with America. Islam is at war with Europe. Islam is at war with Israel. Islam is at war with Hindus. Islam is at war with Buddhists. Islam is at war with Confucians. Islam is at war with atheists. Islam is at war with everybody. And they have their rules, and their rules are very clear. Dave Big Boutte says Islam is at war with civilization. It absolutely is. And it is a brutal, brutal, brutal anti-human religion. Anti-human. And everywhere the crescent flag flies is a shithole. The exceptions being places like Dubai or Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or whatever the case may be, and that's because the West has pumped a lot of money into their, Dubai is amazing. I've not been. Natasha wants me to go. I'd like to go very much, and I'm sure I'd be very jealous of Dubai, because Dubai looks like the kind of cities that we should have in America. It looks like a 21st century city. Problem is, it's out in the middle of the desert, and who wants to live there? But the people who live in Dubai didn't earn that wealth. They kind of inherited it. They got lucky. All of that money came from below the ground. They didn't extract the oil. They don't know how. They didn't build those buildings. They don't know how. And what you get are these Saudi princes and so on, who are worth billions of dollars, walking around in their white gowns. I forget the name of these things, and buying gold-plated toilets and Ukrainian hookers and all the rest of the stuff. And they have no. There's no base to that to that structure. There's no foundation. Um, it's, I mean, taking Dubai as an example, it is an astonishing thing to see, but essentially it's still just a place out in the middle of the desert. Um, and, you know, New York City, for all of its myriad faults, and boy, New York City in the 40s and 50s was just the center of the world. But despite all of that, New York City has a reason for being there, and I don't think you can build from the top down like that. I've said this before, and I'm not joking either. I mean it. I'm not saying it should be a constitutional amendment, because I don't think it comes up to that standard of propriety. But I genuinely mean this. I think it ought to be American policy that the tallest building in the world is in America. And if anybody builds a building taller than the one that we have, then the second they start construction on that, we need to start doing that too. The tallest building, the tallest, most modern, beautiful buildings in the world should be in America. I am envious of Dubai's architectural elegance, and a great deal of China as well. Some of it's a little tacky, but some of the buildings in China are spectacular. Now, our buildings are older because we actually live in them and work in them, and our cities, have a purpose. A lot of the cities in China are, they're just, there's no real foundation to them. They're artificial. Let's build a city here and build all of these ghost town high rises, and these incredible skyscrapers. But honestly, man, I remember, I don't know what the story of it. Rough Ryan says, Bill, not only the building but the entire city needs to be the best city in the world. I couldn't agree more. But the problem is that Democrats run cities, and there you go. I don't know what the latest is on the Oklahoma Tower, but when I heard that they were going to be building the tallest structure in America, I thought, Oklahoma City, how cool is that, man? That's just fantastic. I've heard it's run into some trouble, or either financing trouble, or maybe I don't know. But Oklahoma City, that would be freaking great. And they're not that expensive. I think the Burj Dubai, the tallest building in the world, which is very beautiful, I think it costs $1.5 billion. I mean, Elon could build 10 of those for $15 billion. It's about how much money he's going to make this year. I frankly think, I really do, it just kind of flew into my head. I think Elon ought to build a place that looks like Dubai in Starport, USA in Texas. That's what I think you ought to do. I think you ought to build them right. I think you ought to turn that into Tomorrowland. I really do. Trinity Waters says that Dubai may have been originally built with oil money, but it's a major trading center now with a fairly international atmosphere. Yes, and it's a Muslim country, but the one thing you can't argue with is that it is crime-free, man. If you ask me, would I rather walk through the streets of Dubai at midnight, or Detroit, or Los Angeles, or now New York? I used to be able to walk through Times Square under Giuliani at 3 o'clock in the morning and just felt like Disneyland. But yeah, all of this really, really cool architecture really should be here. That Oklahoma City Tower, let me see. It's beautiful. It's not like stunningly beautiful, but it's beautiful. 1,907 seat. The Legends Tower. It's an approved super tall skyscraper to be built in the Bricktown Entertainment District of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The Legends Tower developer says there's more to come. Here's a, like I said, picture night. Hang on. Boy, that is a big image. There you go. Hang on, YouTube. This is so tedious doing this twice, honestly. And there's probably a way to merge them, and Mersh has been telling me I could do that. I just haven't had the time to get into it as usual. Here you go. Yeah, that's pretty bitchin', man. And it's in the middle of frickin' nowhere, which is pretty cool too. I would love it. I would love it if Oklahoma City were to become like the conservative capital. That would just be rad. You know, that'd just be badass. More like this, please. And Oklahoma City would be about, if you're going to have a beautiful, perfect, conservatively run city, I think Oklahoma City has got a pretty good, lead on it. Good for them. They're built on oil money too, but, we actually work the oil fields in Oklahoma. And so there you go. Anyway, it's time for me to get back to my editing, and I got to be up early. So I think we'll wrap it up for the night. As you probably know by now, this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep things going around here. And my God, I sure would like to grow that fan base. There's just so many problems. But again, we got that wonderful comment earlier from the forum about, just hang in there, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just hang in there. Anyway, thanks again to the members for making this possible. Got to be back here at 6 o'clock in the morning. Set aside some time this weekend. We can Zoom call and walk you through this tech support stuff, including Discord. Thank you, Marusha. I'll take you up on it, but I won't take you up on it this weekend. I'm pretty much locked until first week in September. I'm just here, but thanks. Yeah, because I would certainly like it. Anyway, like I said, that'll do it. I guess we'll see you back here on Monday for the Stratosphere Studio. Until then, you guys have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll see you in a few days.